When Ish and Josh saw him walking into the school compound the next day, they froze in shock. "How is he okay?" Josh whispered, his eyes wide with confusion. "Ish, didn't you put the powder in his ice cream?" "I did," Ish replied, frowning. "I don't understand what went wrong." They watched Jamal from a distance, their minds racing with plans for their next move. They needed to act fast, or their mission would fail. The next morning, Queen Alice approached Amina in the kitchen. "Ma'am, may I ask you something?" "Of course, dear," Amina replied, smiling. "I think Jamal needs more attention in school. He often comes home tired and weak, and I fear something might be troubling him. Could I follow him to school, just to keep an eye on him?" Amina paused, her brow furrowed. What could possibly be wrong with him? "Has he said anything to you?" "No," Queen Alice admitted, "but I feel something isn't right." Amina shook her head gently. "Dear, you don't need to worry. The school has capable teachers, and if anything happens, they will contact us immediately. Trust me, Jamal is in good hands." Queen Alice nodded reluctantly and returned to her chores, though her heart remained uneasy. At school, Jamal sat under a large tree with Ish and Josh. They laughed and chatted as usual. "Jamal, how do you spend season? Is it with your family? Do you go on vacation?" Ish asked, her smile sweet but fake. "Well," Jamal replied cheerfully, "every year, my family and I go to the village to celebrate with my grandma." Ish's eyes sparkled with interest. "That's wonderful. What about you, Ish? How do you and Josh intend to celebrate this year?" "We will be celebrating in our village, Yuda," and immediately Jamal said, "Wait a minute, Yuda? Are you serious?" "That's my village." Ish with pretense answered. "Wait, are you from Yuda?" Jamal said, grinning. "That's where we celebrate. That's where I am from." "Really?" Ish exclaimed. "That's where we're from too." "That is nice. Maybe we'll see each other there." "That means we will celebrate this season together," Jamal said. "We will go to the river and celebrate, just the three of us. But I don't know if my mother would let me go to the river," Jamal said. Josh leaned in, smirking. "You don't have to ask your mom, do you? You're old enough to decide where to go." "Yeah, I guess I am," Jamal replied, a smile lighting up his face. As the year's end approached, Queen Alice tried to convince Amina to change their plans. "Ma'am," she said to Amina, "Jamal mentioned wanting to try something new this holiday. Maybe you should consider taking him somewhere different." Amina called Jamal into the room. "Jamal, do you want us to go somewhere else this year?" "No, Mum," Jamal said quickly. "I want to visit Grandma in the village." Queen Alice sighed as Amina turned to her. "See? He made his choice." Despite her worries, the family packed up and traveled to the village as planned. On their second day in the village, Jamal dressed to play with his friends. Queen Alice started to follow him, but Amina called her back. Stay and help me with lunch, she said. Jamal will be fine. Reluctantly, Queen Alice stayed behind. Jamal ran off to meet Ish and Josh at the river. The two were waiting for him, their smiles bright and friendly. Jamal, we have a gift for you, Ish said, holding up a sparkling necklace. It's a token of our friendship. Jamal's eyes lit up. It's beautiful. Thank you. Let me put it on you, Ish said. As she clasped the necklace around his neck, its magic activated, allowing him to breathe underwater. Suddenly, Ish and Josh grabbed him by the arms and dragged him into the river. Jamal struggled, shouting, "What are you doing?" But his voice was muffled by the water. To his horror, Ish and Josh transformed into their true merfolk forms, their shimmering tails propelling them through the depths. They swam straight to the Ocean King's palace. The king asked the guards to lock him up. He will be used for next sacrifice, he said. Jamal was scared after witnessing how Ish and Josh transformed into a big mermaids. Meanwhile on land, Queen Alice noticed Jamal was missing. She searched frantically, asking the neighborhood children if they had seen him. One child said they saw him heading toward the river. Queen Alice ran to the river but found no one. Panicked, she rushed back to the house and cried, "Amina! Jamal is gone." Amina and Ifed joined the search, going from house to house and calling out for Jamal. At the river, Queen Alice broke down, her tears mixing with the water. She turned to Amina and said, "I need to tell you the truth. I am Queen Alice." Amina stared at her in shock. "What are you saying?" "I gave up my tail and my beauty to protect Jamal. On your last visit to the river, my friend Zeb saw you and Jamal. She reported me to the king, and I was exiled. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to panic. But now, they've taken Jamal. He's in the ocean." Amina fell to her knees, crying, "My child, what have we done?" Queen Alice stood tall, her determination returning. "I must go back and plead for mercy." She stepped into the river, and as the water touched her legs, they transformed back into her shimmering turquoise tail. She swam toward the ocean palace. When Queen Alice arrived at the palace, she was immediately captured and thrown into the same cell as Jamal. Jamal ran to her, hugging her tightly. "I'm scared," he whispered. The next day, Zeb visited the cell. Her amber eyes were filled with tears. "Alice," she said softly, "I know I've wronged you. I was jealous without understanding your struggles. Please forgive me. I have really learned a lot. Jealousy is a bad thing. And wishing to be in people's shoes or position is also bad, because we do not know what the other person is going through in secret. I am so sorry." My friend, tears streamed down her face. Queen Alice looked at her old friend, tears streaming down her face. "It's okay, Zeb. I forgive you. But we must stop the sacrifices. No other child should suffer." Zeb nodded. "I've learned something, Alice. Only the king, his brother, and a few others are involved. Something is going on in the palace and people are not aware. In 2 days, all the elders in council with the people will be gathering to celebrate in the palace. Then we will approach the king and seek for mercy in front of everyone. 2 days later, the palace held a grand celebration. All the merfolk gathered, including the elders and chiefs. While the celebration was going on, Queen Alice, Jamal, and Zeb sneaked in. Zeb and Queen Alice knelt before the king in the grand hall, with Jamal standing behind them. "Great king," Queen Alice pleaded, "please spare Jamal. He is innocent. Show mercy." The king shook his head. "It is not my choice. This is a tradition passed down by my father and his fathers before him. His blood must cleanse the throne." One of the high chiefs disagreed and stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing, "your father never practiced blood sacrifices. It is not in our customs." Another chief agreed. "The idea of sacrificing children was never part of our laws. It was fabricated." "What do you mean?" the king answered. And another chief answered, "Your Majesty, it is never in our custom to sacrifice blood to the throne." The king rose and said, "But I don't understand, Chief Cougar, if I can remember very well. You and 3 other chiefs read this laws to me. Marry a second wife, have children with her, that will be used as sacrifice to cleanse the throne." Chief Cougar knelt down saying, "I am sorry, my king. It was never my intention. Your brother paid us to give you this rules and made my daughter marry you as first wife, with the promise not to ever be pregnant, while you marry other women and sacrifice their children to the throne. He planned to take over your throne and make me the head chief, when you pass with no heir to succeed you. I'm so sorry, Your Highness, please forgive me and my daughter." The king staggered back, his eyes filled with pain. "You mean I killed my own child for nothing? And this was all a lie?" The court fell silent as the king's sorrow turned to rage. "Arrest my brother, my first wife, and the treacherous chiefs," he ordered. Turning to Queen Alice and Zeb, the king knelt before them. "I am so sorry for the pain I caused you both. Alice, you sacrificed everything, and Zeb, I took our child. Please forgive me." Queen Alice and Zeb embraced him. "We forgive you," they said in unison. The king declared Queen Alice his first wife and Zeb his second, promising to be a better father and husband. The next day, Queen Alice brought Jamal back to the surface. Amina, who had been waiting by the river day and night, ran to embrace her son. "My boy!" she cried, holding him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered to Queen Alice. "Thank you for bringing him back." Months later, Queen Alice became pregnant. During the next seasonal visit, Jamal returned to the ocean. This time, he was greeted by Queen Alice, who was heavily pregnant. His joy knew no bounds as he realized he would soon have a little mermaid sibling to play with. The ocean, once filled with pain and betrayal, now promised a future of hope and love.